What you're about to see is one of Judge Frank Caprio's most challenging cases, one that tested every bit of his patience, wisdom, and self-control. A 45-year-old woman named Karen Mitchell storms into court, furious over a parking ticket. But when she begins shouting at Judge Caprio with shocking disrespect, his calm and measured response turns into a masterclass in composure and integrity. Fair warning, what Karen does in that courtroom might make your blood boil. Yet Judge Caprio's dignified handling of her outburst will remind you why true leadership is defined by restraint, not reaction. When this entitled woman collides with Judge Caprio's quiet authority, the lesson she learns becomes unforgettable. But before we dive into this remarkable display of judicial wisdom, make sure you hit that subscribe button because this case perfectly shows why Judge Caprio is widely regarded as one of the greatest judges of our time, and I'm curious, where are you? Watching this from right now? Are you on your phone during lunch, streaming on your laptop at home, or maybe listening in your car? Do you ever have to deal with difficult people at work, in your neighborhood, or even in your own family? Drop a comment below with your city and tell me how you're tuning in. Because Judge Caprio's way of handling tough personalities works everywhere, from New York to London and beyond. This isn't just another courtroom moment. It's a powerful lesson in maintaining respect, setting boundaries, and showing grace under fire. What happens in the next 30 minutes will teach you something profound about respect, consequences, and the strength that comes from staying calm when others lose control. It's a busy Thursday afternoon in November at the Providence Municipal Court, and Judge Frank Caprio is making his way through a long list of traffic cases and minor violations. The courtroom holds its usual mix of defendants, some anxious, some remorseful, most showing proper respect for the process. At exactly 2:15 p.m., the bailiff calls the next case, Karen Mitchell versus the City of Providence, a parking violation involving multiple unpaid fines totaling $340. From the moment Karen Mitchell walks into the room, tension fills the air. She's a well-dressed woman in her mid-40s, moving with a confidence that borders on arrogance. Her designer handbag swings sharply as her heels click across the courtroom floor. But what really draws attention is her posture, arms crossed, jaw tight, and an expression that makes it clear she believes she doesn't belong here and plans to prove it. Karen's appearance today isn't voluntary. Over the past 6 months, she's racked up 7 parking tickets for occupying handicapped spaces, blocking fire lanes, and ignoring expired meters. Each citation was met with indifference. Every court summons went straight to the trash. Eventually, a warrant was issued, forcing her to show up. But here's why this case stands out. Karen Mitchell has never been held accountable. She spent her life using intimidation, complaints, and loud arguments to get her way. What she doesn't realize is that she's about to meet someone who won't respond to those tactics. And before we see what happens when entitlement meets firm authority, let me ask you, have you ever dealt with someone like Karen? Someone who believes rules don't apply to them, who argues and demands until they win? Share your story in the comments, because Judge Caprio's about to deliver a masterclass on handling difficult people. It's a busy Thursday afternoon in November at Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio is working through his regular docket of traffic violations and minor infractions. The courtroom atmosphere is typical, a mix of anxious, apologetic, and respectful defendants, each waiting for their turn. At exactly 2:15 p.m., the bailiff announces the next case, Karen Mitchell versus the City of Providence, a parking violation case involving multiple unpaid fines totaling $340. From the moment Karen Mitchell steps into the courtroom, tension fills the air. She's a stylish woman in her mid-40s, dressed impeccably and exuding an unmistakable sense of entitlement that immediately unsettles the staff. Her designer handbag swings sharply as she walks, high heels clicking across the floor. But what truly draws everyone's attention is her posture. Crossed arms, tightened jaw, and an expression that makes it clear she feels above being there, determined to make her displeasure known. Karen's presence in court is the result of 6 months of disregard for city regulations. She's accumulated 7 parking tickets for occupying handicapped spaces, blocking fire lanes, and overstaying at expired meters. Each citation was ignored. Every court summons was discarded. Today, a bench warrant finally compelled her to appear. What makes this case particularly striking is that Karen Mitchell has never faced real accountability. She's accustomed to controlling situations through intimidation and arrogance, relying on her tone and attitude to get her way. What she doesn't realize is that she's about to encounter a judge who cannot be swayed by power or pride, and who demands respect from everyone who enters his courtroom. And friends, before I show you what happens when entitlement collides with authority, let me ask you something. Have you ever encountered someone like Karen, a person who believes rules don't apply to them, who argues, shouts, and demands special treatment? Share your experiences in the comments. How did you handle it? Because Judge Caprio is about to demonstrate exactly how to deal with difficult people. As Karen continues her rant, Judge Caprio lets her finish without interruption. He doesn't argue, doesn't react. He simply watches with calm authority, fully in control of his courtroom. When she finally stops to catch her breath, he speaks in a tone that instantly shifts the entire mood. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm giving you a choice. You can keep behaving this way and I'll hold you in contempt of court, meaning you'll spend the night in jail. Or you can compose yourself, show proper respect, and we can handle your case appropriately. Karen snaps back. Are you threatening me? You can't jail me for telling the truth. This is America. I have rights. You absolutely do, Mrs. Mitchell, Judge Caprio replies evenly. But those rights come with responsibilities, something you seem to have forgotten. His voice stays calm but carries unmistakable firmness. Let me explain something that perhaps no one else in your life has said. He continues, what you're doing right now isn't exercising your rights. It's acting like you're above the law. Judge Caprio stands and walks around the bench, not with sympathy this time, but with the presence of someone delivering an important lesson. You said you pay taxes and therefore pay my salary. That's true, but paying taxes doesn't excuse you from following the same laws as everyone else. Karen starts to interrupt again, but Judge Caprio raises his hand quietly and she falls silent. Those handicapped spaces you parked in, he says firmly, are reserved for people with genuine disabilities who need access to those buildings. When you park illegally, you're not just breaking a rule, you're creating real obstacles for others. Someone in a wheelchair might have to park farther away and struggle to reach their destination because of your choice. Judge Caprio's tone becomes firm, but controlled. Those fire lanes you used for convenience are there for emergencies. Fire trucks and ambulances rely on them to save lives. When you block them, you're potentially delaying help for someone in crisis. For the first time, Karen's defensive posture falters. His calm and reasoned explanation starts breaking through her sense of entitlement. And those expired parking meters, Judge Caprio continues, they exist to make sure everyone has fair access to limited parking spaces. When you ignore the time limits, you're denying that access to other citizens, people who also pay taxes and deserve equal treatment. He pauses, then picks up her file. Mrs. Mitchell, this record shows you own a successful real estate business. Is that correct? Karen snaps back. What does that have to do with anything? But her tone has lost its earlier confidence. It has everything to do with it, Caprio replies evenly. As a business owner, you depend on laws and regulations to protect your property, enforce contracts, and maintain order. Yet you seem to think those same laws shouldn't apply when they inconvenience you. He sits back, locking eyes with her. Tell me, Mrs. Mitchell, if a client refused to pay for a house you sold because they thought your price was just a money grab, how would you respond? Judge Caprio's brilliant response. Karen begins to respond, then hesitates, sensing where this conversation is going. That's different. That's my business. No, Mrs. Mitchell, Judge Caprio replies calmly. It's not different at all. Laws are the business of society. Just like your business contracts, they apply equally to everyone. If you're noticing how skillfully Judge Caprio is dismantling Karen's entitled attitude one point at a time, make sure you're subscribed. This is a true masterclass in handling difficult personalities with logic and patience. What happens next perfectly shows the strength of calm authority over loud aggression. Judge Caprio leans back in his chair, maintaining a composed presence that sharply contrasts with Karen's flustered energy. He's about to deliver a lesson she won't forget. Mrs. Mitchell, he says, look around this courtroom. Do you see all these people waiting for their cases? Karen glances nervously around the room, finally noticing the dozens of eyes watching her with a mix of disapproval and discomfort. Every person here is dealing with their own challenges, Caprio continues. Some made honest mistakes. Some are struggling financially. Others are here because of circumstances beyond their control. But they all share one thing: respect. Respect for this process and for each other. His voice softens slightly but carries unmistakable authority. You came in here demanding special treatment, acting as though the rules don't apply to you and showing complete disregard for everyone present. Do you know what that tells me? Karen remains silent, her earlier boldness gone. It tells me that somewhere along the line people stopped holding you accountable. They let things slide because it was easier than confronting you, and now you believe that raising your voice or making demands will get you what you want. He pauses, letting the words sink in. But here's what I want you to understand, Mrs. Mitchell. This courtroom isn't about your convenience or your feelings. It stands for something far greater: the principle that every citizen lives under the same laws, shares the same responsibilities, and deserves the same respect. Judge Caprio stands once more, his presence commanding the room. When you parked illegally 7 times and ignored 7 citations, you didn't just break parking laws. You sent a message and that you consider yourself above others. That your time, your comfort, and your desires matter more than anyone else's. For the first time, tears begin to form in Karen's eyes. The weight of Judge Caprio's calm yet firm words lingers in the courtroom. Reaching into his desk drawer, he takes out a photograph, an image of the courthouse steps filled with people coming and going. Mrs. Mitchell, he begins, every day hundreds of people walk through these doors. Single mothers trying to clear up traffic fines so they can keep their licenses and jobs. Seniors on fixed incomes doing their best to pay what they owe. Young people learning firsthand that choices have consequences. He slides the photograph toward her. These people don't come in here making demands or raising their voices. They don't blame others. They show up with humility, prepared to take responsibility and work through the process. They already understand something you're only beginning to realize today. Karen's tone softens. And what's that? She asks quietly, her defensiveness gone. That being an adult, Judge Caprio replies, means accepting that the world doesn't revolve around you. It means recognizing that other people's needs are just as important as your own. And it means realizing that respect isn't demanded. It's earned, through how you treat others. Judge Caprio sits back down, his expression softening just a bit. Mrs. Mitchell, I could charge you the full amount, add contempt penalties for your behavior, and send you out the door, but I doubt that would teach you anything you don't already know. Karen looks up, her earlier defiance replaced by confusion. Instead, he continues, I'm giving you a chance to prove you've learned something from this experience. I'm reducing your fines to $100, but there are conditions. Karen's tone shifts to calm respect. What conditions, Your Honor? First, Judge Caprio says, you'll write a letter of apology to the parking enforcement officers whose work you made harder with your attitude. Second, you'll volunteer 4 hours at the Downtown Disability Advocacy Center, where you'll learn firsthand why accessible parking matters. And third, Mrs. Mitchell, you'll return to this courtroom in 30 days and tell me what you've learned about respect, responsibility, and community. His eyes meet hers directly. What follows becomes one of the most meaningful moments in Judge Caprio's career. Not because of confrontation, but because of genuine personal change. He gestures for her to step closer to the bench once more. Mrs. Mitchell, before you leave, I want you to understand something. The person who entered this courtroom 30 minutes ago had forgotten what it means to be part of a community. But the person standing here now has the potential to become a force for good. He pauses. Your success in business shows intelligence and ability. Your emotional response today shows a conscience that just needed awakening. These are gifts, Mrs. Mitchell. The question is, how will you use them? Karen wipes her eyes, visibly moved. Your Honor, I don't know how I became so entitled. Somewhere along the way, I stopped thinking about others. I stopped seeing beyond my own convenience. Recognition is the first step toward change, Judge Caprio says gently. But change requires more than awareness. It requires daily effort and choice. He turns toward the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, you've witnessed something important today. You've seen that it's never too late for someone to grow, to learn, and to choose to be better. Mrs. Mitchell's journey from anger to understanding reminds us that we all have the power to change, if we're willing to listen, learn, and think beyond ourselves. Looking back at Karen, he continues, Mrs. Mitchell, I believe you can become someone who contributes to your community rather than expects from it. When you return in 30 days, I don't want a theory, I want proof. Tell me about moments when you chose patience over frustration, service over self-interest, respect over entitlement. As Karen gathers her things to leave, she pauses and turns back. Your Honor, may I ask something? Of course, he replies. How do you stay patient? How do you handle people like I was without losing your temper? For the first time that day, Judge Caprio smiles. Mrs. Mitchell, I stay patient because I remember that every person who stands before me is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's neighbor. Everyone deserves a chance to be their best self. Today, you took yours. The courtroom breaks into spontaneous applause, not for Karen's earlier defiance, but for her remarkable transformation and Judge Caprio's composed, insightful handling of a tense moment. Even the court officers who had braced for conflict are visibly moved by what they've witnessed. As Karen exits, several people stop her to shake her hand, recognizing her courage in taking responsibility and choosing change. And subscribers, this is what makes Judge Caprio legendary. He didn't just manage a difficult person, he helped someone rediscover humility and purpose. This is what true leadership looks like. 30 days later, Karen Mitchell returns to Judge Caprio's courtroom, just as she promised. But the woman who enters this time is almost unrecognizable. Gone is the anger and entitlement. In their place stands a calm, respectful woman with quiet confidence. Karen approaches the bench carrying a folder and wearing a modest smile that lights up her whole face. Mrs. Mitchell, Judge Caprio begins. Tell me about your month, Your Honor, she says softly. I need to start by saying that 30 days ago, you saved me from myself. I was turning into someone I never wanted to be, and I didn't even realize it. Karen opens her folder, revealing several documents. I wrote apology letters to every parking enforcement officer in the downtown district. But more than that, I met with Sergeant Rodriguez, their supervisor, and learned about the challenges they face every day. People yell at them, threaten them, and treat them terribly, just like I was doing. She pauses, then continues. I also finished my volunteer hours at the Disability Advocacy Center. There I met a woman named Mrs. Patterson, who uses a wheelchair. She told me about times she couldn't enter buildings because someone had parked illegally in a handicapped spot. She once missed a doctor's appointment and had to delay her treatment because of it. Karen's voice becomes stronger as she continues. I realized that every time I parked illegally, I wasn't just breaking a rule, I was possibly hurting real people with real needs. But the biggest change, Your Honor, is in how I treat people every day. I used to lose patience with slow cashiers, rude waiters, or demanding clients. Now I try to remember that everyone is dealing with challenges I can't see. Judge Caprio nods, clearly encouraged by her honesty. Tell me about a specific moment when you acted differently, he asks. Just last week, Karen explains. A young mother at the grocery store was struggling with her crying baby. People were staring and whispering. The old me would have been annoyed, but this time I offered to help carry her groceries, and in my business I've changed too. Instead of just trying to close deals, I focus on understanding my clients' needs, helping them find homes that truly fit their families, even if it means earning a smaller commission. Judge Caprio leans forward, genuinely interested in her transformation. Mrs. Mitchell, what do you think caused this change? Karen pauses before replying. Honestly, Your Honor, it was realizing I'd become someone I wouldn't want to spend time with. You made me see that my attitude was pushing people away and turning me into a person I didn't respect. Since then, I've started volunteering regularly at the Disability Center and working with Sergeant Rodriguez to build a community awareness program about parking rules and why they matter. Karen then takes a final document from her folder. And Your Honor, I brought something for you. These are thank you notes from people whose lives I've tried to make a little better this month. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Judge Caprio reviews the notes, his face showing genuine pride in her transformation. Mitchell, a month ago you were frustrated with the world, expecting special treatment. Today, you're giving back to your community and showing real empathy. What would you say to someone who's in the same mindset you had 30 days ago? Karen pauses, thinking deeply before responding. I tell them that anger and entitlement lead to isolation. When you expect the world to revolve around you, you trap yourself in a very small space, one that only fits you. But when you start thinking about others and contributing to your community, life expands. it becomes fuller, more rewarding, and filled with purpose. Mrs. Mitchell, you've proven that transformation is possible at any age and in any circumstance. You've shown that taking responsibility isn't about facing punishment, it's about choosing growth. Judge Caprio rises and offers his hand to Karen. Your fines are dismissed, your community service is fulfilled. But most importantly, you've earned something far greater than money. You've earned the respect of those around you. Karen Mitchell's remarkable turnaround soon spread throughout Providence, and then across the internet, becoming one of Judge Caprio's most powerful examples of justice rooted in education rather than punishment. 6 months later, local news interviewed Karen again. She had continued her volunteer efforts, deepened her community involvement, and restructured her business to focus on genuinely helping families instead of chasing profit. Judge Caprio didn't just change my actions, Karen told reporters. He changed my perspective. He taught me that being part of a community means caring for more than just yourself. Perhaps the most meaningful endorsement came from Mrs. Patterson, the wheelchair user Karen had met during her community service. Karen has become one of our most devoted volunteers, she said. She now understands that accessibility isn't just about ramps or parking, it's about dignity and inclusion for everyone. Reflecting later, Judge Caprio said in an interview, the true purpose of justice isn't to punish people into submission, it's to guide them toward becoming better versions of themselves. It's about helping people recognize how their actions impact others and giving them the tools to make better choices, he explained. Karen entered my courtroom as someone who had forgotten what it meant to belong to a community. She left as someone determined to help strengthen it. That's the essence of real justice. 2 years later, Karen Mitchell founded a scholarship program for young people pursuing public service, especially those focused on community advocacy and accessibility rights. At the award ceremony, she said, Judge Caprio showed me that leadership isn't about demanding respect, it's about earning it through service. My hope is that these young people learn that lesson far earlier than I did. Karen's journey is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to change, never too late to think beyond ourselves, and never too late to become someone who contributes instead of just taking. We've all met people like the old Karen, those who act entitled, disregard rules, and expect special treatment. But as Judge Caprio demonstrated with patience, wisdom, and firm guidance, even the most resistant individuals can transform. Share in the comments a moment when someone's patient teaching changed your outlook, or when you had to learn a hard lesson about respect and responsibility. Judge Caprio's handling of Karen's case reminds us that true leadership isn't about asserting power or proving superiority. It's about guiding others to become their best selves while upholding the values that sustain a community. Like this video, if you believe in education over punishment, growth over judgment, and the idea that anyone can change when they're open to listening and learning, subscribe for more stories showing how patience, wisdom, and fairness can transform people and communities. And remember Judge Caprio's words, everyone deserves the chance to be their best self. The real question is, will they take it? Thank you for watching, and thank you for believing in the power of change.